Hello, this is the video to learn how to use certain features of ACL software. If you start your ACL software, then you will get no data available on the left-hand side here because there is no data uploaded. You just open the software. It's like opening Microsoft Word or Excel where there is no data file. The way to retrieve the data file that you have been using, you go to File, Recent Project, and you pick the one that we did in the first video, which is on the desktop. So I pick that one, and that will open all my data files. Now, one of the issues when we open the data files for the first time, after we downloaded them or from another system and uploaded them into ACL, is we get all the data but we don't get the relationship between tables. The way to do the relationship between table is we need to establish the relationship in ACL. So for example, we know that each customer has multiple sales invoice. We know that from the ER diagram, entity relationship diagram, or just by looking at the data in it. So for example, the customer file has the customer numbers, and when we look at the sales invoice, we look at the customer number and they're listed here, so there must be a relationship between the two. From the business processes, we know that one customer has multiple sales invoice. The way to establish the relationship is to go to Data and Join Tables. We first double-clicked on Customer, so when we double-click on Customer and then to go to Data, Join Tables, we get the primary table is the customer file, the customer table. The secondary table, which is the child in the relationship, we click on this menu and we look down the list until we find sales invoices. And when we click on it, we see the secondary keys and secondary fields, primary keys and primary fields. So what does that mean? It means that the keys, primary and secondary, is basically how we link the two tables. So we link on customer number. I'll click on customer number here under customer table, and I will link customer number, click here, and you will notice that there is a 1 on each side. This customer number is under sales invoice. And there is a 1 between the two tables on each column, and that tells me that there is a relationship. Now, when we establish a link like that, we have to ask ourselves, do we need all the columns to appear in the output file? So maybe yes, maybe no, but let's assume it's a yes. So we have to go down here for the fields and we click on all the fields. I'll click on the first one and that gives me a 1. If I click on the second one, the selection of the first one disappear and I select the second. So the way to select multiple fields is to click on the first and then press down on the control button on your keyboard and then click on the second, third, fourth, fifth, and so on. You notice now that I am picking all the fields in the customer table. I can do the same thing for all the fields on the in the sales invoice, and I must also again click on the first and then push the control button on the keyboard and click on the second, third, fourth, and so on until I select them all. It is also very important to check the pre-sort secondary table. Just the way ACL works will make it a little bit easier. We go to More and we accept all the default. If we have already an existing table that links or a special file that links those two tables, we can say append, but we don't have that, so we will just click OK. Now enter file name, so we go to 2 here and we put customers and invoices. because by linking the two tables, that will create another file on the left hand side here. So we press OK, and we get an error. The key field in the customer file, which is the primary key called customer number, cannot be connected to the customer number in the child file, which is the sales invoice. Why? Because the data type is different. What does that mean? Well, let's cancel out of this and look at the data file. So if we go to edit table, we still double clicked on customer here. Edit table layout. We look at it. We look at the customer number. We notice that the category or the type is N. So when we look at all the fields, we notice it's either a C or an N. C is a character field. So the city is a name, is a text. So that will be of type character. The customer number is numeric, so it has the N. Okay, so that's in the master file for customers. We close this and we go to the sales invoice. Double click on that until we see it open here. We see it here, sales invoice. We go to edit table layout. What is the customer number type here? Oh, it's a C. So a character for a field for the customer number cannot be linked to a numeric field in the customer master. So we need to change the type of one of them. We typically change the type in the child table. So the parent table is the customer because it has, each customer has multiple invoices. So we will change it here in the sales invoice. So we will double click on the customer number. We see it has type ASCII. We double click on numeric on the right hand side. So now it's changed to numeric. If we click on accept, then we see it now changed to customer number numeric. We will close this and we will go back and try to relate the two tables again. So again, we have to double click on the customer first because that's the main file, that's the parent, and then we go data, join tables, and we do what we did before. The very first thing is we are going to click on the customer number on in the customer master file, and then on all the fields by clicking on the field while we're clicking on the control button on the keyboard. The secondary table, we are going to drop down the list and we see sales invoice, and again we pick the customer number as the key, and then we go down to the fields and we click all the fields. We said that we have to pre-sort secondary table. This is just functionality, and we have to give the output of this link or this join a new name. So we're going to call it customers and invoices, just like we did before. When we click OK, now this should work. And it worked. There is no error anymore. However, if we notice, we have now on the list customer and invoices as a new table. When we double click on it, we see everything that we need to see on from both tables, but merged into one table. And that's how we join tables. First, we have to make sure the data types are the same. Second, we have to give it a name because it does create a new file for us that merges the two tables together.